True story, it's because I've just brushed. True story, it's because I've just brushed. How has this gone so wrong? The most powerful gaming PC you can build! All over again. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have the brand new 3900K Intel CPU and also the brand new RTX 4090 Master from Aorus, which is the single largest graphics card I've ever seen. I mean, just look at this. Look at this. Every time I see it, I just can't believe it. I'm not sure you're ready. Look at it! Literally crazy! And I really can't stress enough just how exciting this build is going to be. And in this video, as always, we're going to walk you through all of the parts, we're going to show you how to put it together, and ultimately we are going to show you some benchmarks so you can see exactly how well the 3900K performs with an RTX 4090. Let's get started. There is honestly so much new stuff to talk about today, it is crazy. And first things first, a massive thank you to Gigabyte Aorus for actually sponsoring this video, and also for sending out this, the brand new Z790 range. This is their master motherboard, so it's a top-end, serious bit of kit, and essentially you are going to get a little bit more bandwidth with Z790. It is going to support the latest 13th generation chips out of the box, but obviously if you go for the latest and greatest, you get maximum features, and this pretty much has a lot of stuff on it. I mean, this is definitely ready for PCI Gen 5 SSDs. Look at the size of that heatsink. You've got loads of I/O on this. If you want USB ports, then you're very much covered. Wi-Fi 6E, 10 gigabit Ethernet, PCI Generation 5 on the top graphics slot as well for future upgrades, PCI Generation 4 for SSDs scattered throughout this, and then I love the fact you have this handy dandy little button so you can remove your graphics card without having to like ravage your motherboard with a screwdriver and risk damaging it. Definitely nothing I've done before. But as always, we'll grab our motherboard and place it on top of the box and then pick up our brand new CPU. And I'm going to be honest with you, the previous generation, the i9 has not necessarily been the chip to go for. Mainly really because in terms of value for money, the i7 and the i5 did actually have very similar performance. You can find that video in the top right corner of your screen. So for most games, even with a 3090 Ti, it didn't make too much difference. But this time, things are very different because the i9 actually has extra cores versus the i7, and the 4090 is so ridiculously powerful, a lot of games can be CPU limited. And this is why I'm so excited to actually try this out, because even the Ryzen 7950X was not able to properly utilize the 4090 in every single title at every single resolution, even 4K in some tests. So I'm hoping that we see much better results from our i9. We actually have a total of 24 cores this time, and I know a lot of people are very cynical about this. They say that they're not real cores, their efficiency, it's not as good, go for Ryzen, but I assure you, you have a lot of performance under the hood, and if you do want to see exactly which is best, you can find my full review of these chips coming tomorrow. Unless you're watching this in the future, then it's live now. True story, it's because I've just brushed. True story, it's because I've just brushed. How did that happen? Well, let's hope it still works. Oh, user error. Anyway, PC drop tips aside for a second. True stories, because I've just brushed. Let's move on to our RAM, which is of course DDR5, and I can't stress enough how difficult this is to open. I can't stress enough just how critical mass DDR4 versus DDR5 is going to be with this generation, because my theory is if you can use DDR4 and get very similar, if not the same gaming performance with these new Intel chips, versus the Ryzen chips that demand DDR5, then clearly you're going to be able to save yourself a lot of money by going for Intel and getting the same level of performance. But in today's video, we're going for a very, very fast kit of memory. This is a 6800 MHz XMP overclockable kit from G.Skill, their Trident Z5. I've got my concentrating face on right now, but that's genuinely because I'm fascinated as to how this is going to perform. Imagine if DDR4 was the same. Imagine. And of course, it's exactly the same story with SSDs, because PCI Generation 5 SSDs are about to drop. The one that we're using here, though, is only Gen 4. This is one from Sabrent. It's their Rocket 4 Plus. And this is actually a really nice sort of sweet spot, because it does give you some PCI Generation 4 performance. It uses the extra bandwidth, but it's not the absolute fastest SSD you can get. But in my previous PCI Generation 4 vs 3 vs hard drive test that you can find in the top right corner of your screen, we didn't really see any key differences in terms of game load time. So if you are looking to save money, that's the way I would go. But if you're spending this much money on a gaming PC, maybe you want to spend a little bit more just for a bit of future-proofing. Let's take this absolutely ginormous heatsink off. Look. I'm also going to be fascinated to see just how well PCI Generation 5 SSDs can be cooled, because if you need heat sinks like this to actually keep them under check, well, they're probably going to produce a fair bit of heat. SSD is in. Remember, if you do want to go for Gen 5 SSD, you are going to have to put this in this top slot. So if you upgrade later, make sure you swap them around or you won't get the full speed. But now that our motherboard is complete, we can move on to our lovely little chassis. And I say little, the whole reason I've gone for this is because it is quite a wide boy. And believe it or not, when this launched, this is the Meshify 2 Lite. So this is the one that comes with RGB as well. I thought, why would anyone need a case this long? It just seems a bit like a waste of space, right? Well, the answer is clearly that they knew things like this were coming. Obviously, you can do custom loops, have loads of radiators and things in there, but this is one of the few chassis I think that will fit a card like this in there without any issue at all, will give you plenty of airflow and will allow you to actually enjoy having a very larger system. I mean, tall is great, but you know, you need the length. How does the side panel come off? Very easy, just a little tab. The other side also comes off in exactly the same way. You're getting a sneak peek. I haven't seen it yet. What have we got? Yeah, quite a nice little layout. I wasn't a massive fan of the Fractal Torrent purely because the power supply was up here and it was quite messy, if I'm honest, once you got all the cables in. But as long as you can sort of stuff everything down here, use a modular power supply, I think this is going to be very easy to keep managed, especially with this large plate back here. The question becomes, though, is there actually any fan or RGB hub, or are they all just daisy chained? To me, it looks like they're just daisy chained, which I'm not a massive fan of. Even cheap MSI cases come with a load of like cable management and extra extensions for RGB and fan speed. I think that's something that could be improved going forward, but it's not a deal breaker. The price is fair, if that's the only problem. I think this is what, about 120-ish? Depends on the version. Editor Carl, do your magic. I'm watching you. Let's lay our case down flat and actually get our motherboard installed. Oh, I'm sure you've seen all of this before, but you do occasionally get someone that's never built a PC that just goes in super hard and wants to go 4i9 4090, and they might not know what a standoff is. And of course, a standoff is when you have two people in a saloon that have a disagreement and they take it outside and have a little who can stay alive competition. Well, we're in anyway. Oh, and here it is. Jet black design. Not the most original, but it's going to allow for plenty of RGB goodness. I have the power! Literally, because this is a power supply. And we've got a bit of an exclusive here, actually, because this is the Dark Power 13 from Be Quiet. It's a 1000 watt power supply. And the reason we're using this before it actually comes out is because it has the new power connection as standard. It is one of the cables. Not to worry, though, because you get an adapter in the box with a card like this. It's just not going to look that clean. Or you can buy a third-party cable for your existing power supply, as long as you make sure it's an official one that will definitely work, and then you can have a much smaller power connection without a load of dingly-dangly cables everywhere. Where are you? Where are you? There you are! A dual-ended 600 watt connector. Yeah? It's new. I told you everything about this is new, including my glasses are fairly new. Let's go with that. Do you like them? No one commented, not one person. I'm amazingly insulted. Here we go, look, bang. And of course the new thing is this thing here, PCIe Gen 5 600 watt connector. Tasty. Is it exactly the same both ends? I believe it is. So here we go for the first time. Boom. Fractal, this is a bit tight. Why do manufacturers do this? Just have loose screws. Be like me, have a screw loose all of the time. Fan facing downwards, slide it in. Feed your cables through. I mean, the main reason that we're doing this now, rather than installing the radiator, is so these CPU connections can be much more easily fed in and plugged in before you've got this space occupied by radiator. Plug in our SATA connection for our RGB fans, and then just plug in all of our I/O, USB, the works really. And at this stage, you can actually see that our rig is coming along very nicely. There are just two components left to go. The graphics card that we'll put in just a second, but now we need to move on to our CPU cooler. And make no mistake, this is going to use a lot of power. I think I've seen the i9 go over 200 watts, like a fair bit more. Editor Carl, what's our magic wattage? Wow, is it really that much? That's a lot. So point being, you're going to need a decent CPU cooler to actually keep it under check. And the one we're using here is from MSI. I haven't used this since the original 12th gen launch actually, and it was very good. This is the S360. So a 360 rad or like really big air cooler are probably going to be the options you want to go for. As long as it supports Intel 1700, you're probably onto a winner. Not really any RGB, but you do have a display on the front of this actually that you can customize and make look pretty. It should be very straightforward. Just grab the back plate and feed this through. Ah, the hole's not big enough. Are you joking? Why, Fractal, why? What's the point of having a cutout if it doesn't cover the blooming socket? Why? Why would you do this? Why would you design it like this? It's just silly. It's so stupid as well, because I'd actually always recommend that you put the backplate on before you put it in this case for this exact reason. But I'm thinking, oh no, the audience just want to see me move on as quickly as possible. Let's not bore them. Well, are you bored now? Once you have got the backplate on, you have these little posts that then screw into it to keep it all nice and safe and secure. We'll screw all of the fans into the radiator, blowing through it. So when it's at the top, it will blow all the hot air out of the chassis. Every video I say to you guys, I hate radiators. Every video. And the reason for this is because something always happens. I've put all the fans on, blowing the wrong way. It's just so easily done, and then you have to redo it all. It just makes you want to cry. Because I've used this cooler before, I wanted to add a little bit of thermal paste right in the middle. Just grab the whole unit and gently place it on top. Give it a good push. But once you've done that, you can then fix it down with the included screws. There are some cables that you will need to plug in and feed. Once you've pulled that all through the back, you can grab your top plate and then place this on top, and there you have your cooler installed. Well, that was a little bit more frustrating than I would have liked, but the good thing is, I'm about to make myself feel a whole lot better by installing an RTX 4090. As I say, the biggest one I've ever used. How many slots? Officially 2, but I mean, that's more like 3.5, getting on 4. So let's remove our PCIe slot covers, pick up our oversized GPU, and see if it fits. But that doesn't look ridiculous at all, does it? It's almost as if we planned this. Definitely needs the screws to keep this safe and secure. I believe, yes, inside the box you do also get a graphics card support bracket if you're worried about sag and you don't mind a little bit of extra stuff in your rig. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of them, but I guess it's probably sensible to use it. But I believe the very last thing we need to do for this rig to be complete is to actually plug it in. Boom, just like that. Give it a little tidy up. And actually that looks very clean, doesn't it? What do you guys think? I know obviously we've not got any RGB at the moment, but this is definitely a very well themed build in my eyes. I think the only thing some people won't like is the lack of any RGB fans at the top, but I don't think it matters because the rest of the case is going to be doing the talking. The only issues I have with the case are the lack of any hubs for fans or RGB and the fact that they didn't give you a large enough cutout, but everything else has been pretty easy to build in. Cable management with the straps and everything is actually in nice places. It's very easy to do. So as long as you're aware of those couple of limitations, I think you're going to enjoy building this case. So we get this thing turned on. Oh God, it might not work because we dropped the CPU. That would be really bad. I'm actually on time, please. I'm hungry, I want my lunch. Power in. Oh, wait, it's turned itself on. That's very strange. It's not supposed to do that. I've never had a computer do that before. It was on at the switch, so it turned itself on. The graphics card has come to life and it's sort of strobing. This was unexpected. I was trying to build up the tension. Ah! I mean, will it work? Will it work? Are we gonna get something on screen? There's no RGB on the actual fans. Yes! Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. This is unusual. Oh, is the power button? No. I'm so confused. I'm so confused. This is the weirdest build I've ever done. The computer has a mind of its own. Z790 is sentient. Why does it keep restarting though? Well, apparently we have made it to Windows. I say give me a couple of hours to get this sorted out, get all of the games updated, everything ready to go, RGB, the works, and we'll test out some performance, including benchmarks. Oh, the stress is real. It works! Ladies and gentlemen, I have the RGB, I have the fan speed, I even have the XMP. This is the fastest RAM I've ever used, running at 6800 megahertz. You may think I'm lying, but look, look, look! I don't know if that's gonna make any difference to gaming performance, but it's definitely something that's nice to have. And as I click start, a quick reminder for you, the previous champion, the 7950X, got around about 38,000 on the score. So I'm gonna be very interested to see how this compares. I think we're gonna beat it, but can we hit 40,000? Can we do it? Oh, almost, almost. 39,422. So faster than Ryzen, but honestly, pretty neck and neck. But we're hitting a max of 100 degrees on some of the cores. It is a hot mama, a very hot mama. And in terms of power, it's using 290 watts. 290 watts in a CPU. Like, I know it's XMP, but that is astounding. But enough of that. Let's move on to the games. And we're going to start off with the big guns. Some Apex Legends running at 4K max settings, and as you can clearly see, at 4K resolution, we are absolutely smashing it. We're not hitting the 300 FPS frame cap, but we're still getting over 200 FPS. Now we've hit the ground, it's gone down a little bit, it's still pretty much on the money though. And this is pretty insane. I think it's fair to say that if you do want to go for an RTX 4090, you need to have a good reason for actually going for this, and playing at 4K, high refresh rate is definitely a solid one. And unsurprisingly, if you do look at the GPU temperature, the top right corner of your screen, around about 52 degrees, this cooler is definitely doing a very, very good job. Let's turn the resolution down a second though and have a look at our results at 1440p. And dang, just look at that. We are pretty much hitting the nail on the head. Almost 300 FPS constant. That's pretty crazy. I'm very, very impressed by that. Our 1% lows at almost 200 FPS as well. Oh, can I actually deliver? Oh, I've only got a Mozambique. I was too busy being blown away by that FPS. I have never seen Apex like that. And just in case you're interested in acoustics, it's not the absolute quietest system I've ever heard. It's the CPU cooler and the CPU that's producing a little bit more noise than with the AMD system. This is still essentially silent. There's no horrible whirring. It is pretty darn tasty. Let's move on though to a game that has DLSS 3.0. and ray tracing, headline feature. And this is actually the game I think I play most, F1 2022. This is in the wet, I'm not sure it's going to go well, but he's got away well. And this is running at the ultra high preset at 4K, DLSS set to balanced, and as you can see, we're getting around about 144 FPS. But this is pretty much all the FPS you're really going to need. But we have a little trick up our sleeve. And that is if we go into settings, we go into graphics, video mode, and then here is the new magic setting, DLSS frame generation. And we're going to toggle this on, resume the game, and just look at the difference to the frame rate. Not quite double, but not that far away. What's that, about an extra 60 FPS or so? Between 180 and 200 frames a second at 4K, ray tracing, the works. That's pretty darn impressive. But take this crash with plenty of enjoyment. Oh no, it's all gone wrong. What happened? Brake-by-wire failure? What are the chances of that? I mean, this clearly wasn't my fault though. Look, Perez gives me a little shove, I've lost control, smashes into Leclerc. What would the FIA say, eh? For our next title, we're going to take a trip down memory lane, one of my personal favourites, some PUBG. And I'll be honest, I haven't played this in years. Apparently I need to do some training now, which seems silly when I have about 400 hours on this game. But anyway, this is a very different kettle of fish. This is running at 4K, max settings, DX11, and just look at that frame rate. No DLSS or anything like that here, just a solid 250 FPS. And the thing with PUBG is, every time I open it up, I do want to start playing it again, but I just then remember how frustrating it is when you get popped across the map and you've been wasting 30 minutes looting and you didn't even fire anything, and it's like, oh. We just toned it down to 1440p now, and you can see we're getting 400 FPS. 400 FPS max settings, 1440p. That is incredible. That really is quite something, isn't it? Our FPS is barely dipping below 330 FPS. Let me know down in the comment section below though if you do still play PUBG. Is this your top title? Have they improved it? Genuinely would love to know. And for our final title, here's a game that you don't really ever get to see on YouTube, some Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And of course, I jest, you see this all of the time, but if you saw my 7950X video, you know exactly why we're showing this. Because this, of course, is a renowned title for being very CPU bottlenecked. And the 4090, even at 4K, does start to struggle in a title like this. So what we can do is run the benchmark, and then at the end it will give us a very lovely gauge of exactly how CPU limited we actually are. Get your predictions in now, guys. What's going to win? The CPU, the GPU? This is the most powerful gaming PC you can build. Is Shadow of the Tomb Raider going to be toppled? Or is the GPU going to be allowed to stretch its legs? My prediction is on 91% GPU bound. Here we go. I was wrong. 85%. Even with ray tracing on, I thought, you know what, let's give this as much chance as possible. Let's really turn up the graphic settings. 85%. I can't believe that. the 3900K is still bested by Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Who would have thought? Overall, I think there is a lot to say about this system. Firstly, looks. I think it looks brilliant. There's not really too much I would change. I love the whole fractal mesh on the front. I know we've had cases like this for a while, but it definitely still stands out. The extra length is definitely going to come in handy. As we've already discussed, it means you can even put like a custom loop in this without any issue whatsoever. It's just more a case of whether you're happy to have this level of performance, this level of price, and this level of power. The 3 Ps. I guess my advice is pretty similar to the last couple of builds, and that is if you do have the use case and you have the money, then it is going to be worth it, especially for upcoming features like DLSS 3, better ray tracing. But I'm still more excited about the 4080 and the now cancelled 4080 12GB that will probably be the 4070 Ti, because you're then not going to have to worry about being CPU bottlenecked, so you're going to be able to use every single frame that you can generate, and obviously it's going to cost you less money. I think this is still a very niche setup, and if you have a need for it, then great. But for most people watching this, it's great to look at, but it's not necessarily something I would say is a must-have purchase. Bide your time a little bit and maybe watch this space, because there's some pretty interesting hardware on the horizon and you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for watching this video, I really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts on the 4090, on Z790, on the whole system. I'd love to hear from you. Smash the like button if you've enjoyed this video, get yourself subscribed, and of course if you do want to check out current pricing on anything in this rig, you can find it listed down below with my Amazon affiliate links. But thank you so much for watching this video, I'll catch you in the next one. No, let's not put that in.